how is the church relevant in today's world? So, like, why would I go? How can, what's it like to be a Christian if you're not inside of a church, or do you have to be? And, well, and what those of us that are in normal mainline type churches, what have we missed in the kind of changing religious context? What is a spiritual but not religious thing?
Okay.
I think it's generally religion today and culture.
Yeah, but they're really good questions, and they're distinct. So the first one was?
Why go to church, and how is the church relevant in today's world?
Well, I mean, let's start by saying, in many cases, the church is not relevant in today's world. So, but can it be and should it be is another question. In many cases, it isn't. Let me say it like this. Like, I wrote this book about global crises. I think we have 4 major global crises. The first one is the crisis of the planet. We're living in a way that's unsustainable to the planet. We have no idea how much trouble we're in. The second one is the crisis of poverty. We've created an economic system that's not only destroying the planet, but it's so rigged for the people who are already at the top. So, and we're all at the top in the big scheme of things. So for 2/3 of the world's population, it's just not working. And for 1/3 of the world's population, it's really, really, really not working. So we got that problem. I call it the crisis of poverty. And then third, when you have those first 2 crises, you're always going to have, every human tension will be exacerbated. It'll be intensified, bringing you toward violence and war. And when you add to that, that one of the most effective and powerful industries in the world is the weapons industry. I mean, when you take it both from the level of guns and bullets up to bombs and nuclear weapons and so on. You know, we just created weapons of mass destruction that we don't know if we can control it. I mean, you just think that's behind you, and then you heard last week Assad might use chemical weapons and all the rest. So you take those 3 problems, and then the fourth, I would say, is the problem of religion. That religion is very often either distracting us from the first 3 or actually making the first 3 worse. But then you think, okay, if you want to deal with those crises of the planet, we have to teach people to value something more than money. We have to teach people to have a different value system. Take the crisis of poverty. We've got to teach people to value something more than money, once again, and to care about our neighbors who are in great need. And those of us who have a lot, we've got to suddenly use our power and influence on behalf of others. If you take the crisis of peace, we're going to have to teach people how to reconcile, how to find better ways to deal with our problems, how to work for peace rather than work for mutually assured destruction. And if you take the crisis of religion, we're going to have people go through a deep inner transformation to grapple with the first 3 problems. I mean, who's going to do that? You know, who is going to do that? It's got to be faith communities. And so the irrelevance of the church is even more tragic in light of the need for the church to be a place where these essential, irreplaceable things happen. Back in the 90s, a lot of you would remember the name Carl Sagan. He was sort of a famous scientist. Carl Sagan and a group of other scientists had a meeting, it was sometime in the 90s, with religious leaders. And they said, look, we have the data that tells us that the environment is reaching catastrophic tipping points. But we can produce the data, but we don't know anything about changing people's behavior or values. That's supposed to be your specialty. So we've had this science versus faith going on for a long time. Can we get science and faith working together for a while to try to save the planet? So that to me is a pretty important answer to that question. How can it be relevant? Oh, Lord, you know, there's nothing more relevant than what we ought to be about.